the world flickers into existence. Not with a bang, but with a cold, silent, crushing weight. There is no up, no down, only a suffocating, eternal blackness that presses in on all sides. You feel a presence, a million presences. They are you, but not you. A drifting, gelatinous cloud of confusion and terror. This is your birth. A squirt of biological potential into the abyss. A cosmic accident waiting to be corrected. Ah, yes. Consciousness arrives for the ocean's most famous and least understood catastrophe. Official designation, Architeuthis dux. A rather stately, important-sounding title for what is, at this moment, a speck of goo no bigger than a human fingernail, indistinguishable from the millions of other specks of goo floating alongside you in the freezing dark. But you are known to the world that doesn't even know you truly exist, by a more resonant name. You are the Kraken, a name that conjures images of splintered ships and screaming sailors, a legend of unimaginable power and malice. The reality, as you are about to discover in painstaking, humiliating detail, is so much worse. Your story does not begin with a roar, but with a panicked, desperate flight. You are a paralarva, a fragile little life raft of hope in an ocean of profound indifference. The being that expelled you into this void, your mother, was a creature of titanic proportions, a true monster of the deep. Having fulfilled her one and only biological duty, which is to say, creating a floating buffet for everything else that swims, she has vanished, leaving you and your siblings to the mercy of physics and appetite. And the first appetite you encounter is that of your own kin. Your brothers and sisters, born of the same colossal spasm of life, are now your first competitors. There's no family reunion, no shared moment of dawning awareness. There is only the cold, hard calculus of the abyss. Eat or be eaten. You bump into a sibling in the dark. Is it a friend? A guide? No, it's just another mouth, attached to another stomach. The first lesson the universe teaches you is that family is just the competition you haven't managed to consume yet. So you flee. You propel your tiny, pathetic body away from the cloud of your own birth, because to stay is to be an entry on the menu. As you grow, inch by agonizing inch, the list of things that want to murder you for sustenance expands at an exponential rate. In your youth, you are the popcorn of the bathyal zone. Every creature with a mouth and a functioning digestive tract sees you as a convenient, protein-rich snack. The lanternfish, with their stupid, dangling lights, hunt you. The viperfish, all needle teeth and malevolent glare, see you as an easy meal. Even other, slightly larger, slightly more successful squid than you are a threat. You are trapped in a food chain where you are several rungs below the top, and every rung is hungry. Your primary defense strategy is, to put it mildly, pathetic. When threatened, you can squirt a tiny, almost apologetic cloud of ink into the water. In the sunlit world, this might create a moment's confusion. But you don't live in the sunlit world. You live in a place so profoundly dark that this puff of ink is less a visual obstruction and more of an olfactory kick-me sign. It's a chemical announcement that something small, scared, and edible was just here. Your other trick is bioluminescence. You have photophores, little spots on your skin that can produce light. Your genius idea is to use these to mimic the faint, filtered light from the world miles above, a technique called counter-illumination. This is the deep-sea equivalent of trying to hide from a SWAT team by holding a single candle and hoping they mistake you for a decorative sconce. It's a strategy born of utter desperation, and its success rate is, shall we say, statistically disappointing for many of your siblings. Learning to hunt is not some noble, instinctual ballet. It is a masterclass in clumsy, comical failure. Your entire being is geared towards a single action. The explosive lunge, tentacles rocketing forward to snatch unsuspecting prey. But as a juvenile, you are uncoordinated, weak, and frankly, a danger mostly to yourself. You see the faint glimmer of a bristlemouth fish, a creature so common it's basically the deep sea's version of a pigeon. You calculate the trajectory. You lunge, and you miss, smacking your fragile beak against a piece of volcanic rock with a dull thud that echoes in your gelatinous head. You try to ambush a small crustacean, only to get a mouthful of marine snow, the constant, disgusting blizzard of dead skin, fecal matter, and mucus that drifts down from the world above. For every tiny, wriggling meal you successfully manage to choke down, providing just enough energy to survive another day, there are a dozen embarrassing failures. Each miss leaves you weaker, more exposed, and more likely to feature on the Today's Specials board for a passing predator. You aren't learning to be a hunter. You are simply failing your way into not starving to death. And in the merciless dark, that's the only passing grade you need. But let's not dwell on the endless litany of your failures. Let's fast forward. Against all statistical probability, through sheer, dumb luck, you survive. You eat enough terrified little fish, you avoid enough gaping maws, you grow. And you don't just grow a little. You grow a lot. The awkward juvenile struggling for scraps transforms into something else entirely. You become a titan. A true Kraken. A creature of myth and legend. A living torpedo of muscle and cold, predatory intellect. The length of a city boss. Your two longest tentacles, the feeders, can now launch forward with the speed of a striking snake. Their ends armed with clubs covered in suckers, each lined with teeth like tiny, serrated saws. Your 8 arms, thick as tree trunks, are studded with yet more suckers, ready to pull struggling prey towards the one thing at the center of this vortex of death, your beak. A beak so hard and sharp it can slice through steel cable, and more importantly, through the spine of any creature foolish enough to be caught by you. You have reached the peak. You are the apex predator of the abyss. The things that once hunted you are now a minor nuisance, or simply food. The darkness is no longer a place of terror. It is your kingdom. You are the monster that other monsters have nightmares about. Sperm whales, the only creatures in the ocean that can match you for size and power, are no longer a guaranteed death sentence. A confrontation with a whale is now a battle of titans, a peer-to-peer conflict that you can, on a good day, actually win, or at least survive. Your life has improved in the way that being the supreme dictator of a lightless, freezing, high-pressure prison is an improvement. You have achieved the pinnacle of your existence. There is a false, fleeting sense of security, of stability. Finally, you have mastered this miserable existence. And that's when the twist comes. Just as you've established your brutal, lonely reign, a new, far more humiliating, and frankly, sucky problem emerges. It is a problem worse than being hunted, worse than starvation, worse than the crushing pressure. A primal, irresistible biological command begins to throb in your primitive brain. The urge to reproduce. All this power, all this size, all this magnificent predatory perfection is now enslaved to a new mission that is as undignified as it is brutally difficult. You must find a mate. You live in the largest, most sparsely populated habitat on Earth. An environment of near total darkness, spanning millions of cubic miles of water. And you need to find one single, solitary individual of your own species who happens to be of the opposite sex and in the mood for the galaxy's most awkward and violent blind date. It is a logistical nightmare of cosmic proportions. There's no dating app for your kind. No dimly lit bars where you can awkwardly approach another giant squid. There's only the endless, empty, crushing black. So you wander. You drift through your kingdom, not in search of food, but in search of a partner, driven by an instinct you can't ignore. It is a quest that could take years. It is a quest that many of your kind will never complete. And when, against all odds, you do find another of your kind, the encounter is not one of tenderness. It is a brutal, clumsy, and frankly dangerous affair. The male, often smaller, approaches the massive female with what can only be described as reckless abandon. He uses a specialized arm, not to caress, but to slap a spermatophore, a packet of sperm, onto her body. Anywhere. It doesn't matter. He just slaps it on and hopes for the best. It's the biological equivalent of throwing a love letter at a moving car from a highway overpass. The female is often left with deep scars from this encounter, a permanent reminder of the violent, impersonal transaction required to continue the species. You spend your entire life becoming a king of the abyss, a creature of terrifying power, only to discover that your sole purpose, your only legacy, is to engage in this brief, almost comical act of reproductive desperation, all to create a new cloud of gelatinous egg sacs filled with a million new potential tragedies. The cycle of misery must, after all, be perpetuated. Your reign as a titan, as it turns out, is remarkably brief. The immense size that made you a king now becomes your greatest liability. It requires a colossal amount of energy to maintain. The explosive speed, the lightning-fast reactions that defined your peak begin to dull. Hunting, once an effortless act of violence, becomes a chore. Younger, faster, more agile squid now compete with you for food, sometimes stealing kills right from your grasp. The magnificent, iridescent skin that rippled with color and light now becomes a tattered roadmap of your life's battles, scarred by whale teeth, torn by the beaks of your prey, and pockmarked by the love slaps of your mates. You are a fading empire, a crumbling monument to a former glory. The intricate patterns of your bioluminescence, the secret language of the deep you use to hunt and communicate, grow weak and sporadic, like a dying neon sign on a forgotten highway. Your final challenge is rarely a glorious, climactic battle worthy of the legends they will one day tell about you. It's usually something far more mundane, far more insulting. It might be a rival, a younger, stronger version of yourself, who drives you from your territory, leaving you to starve in the barren depths. More likely, it's a final, desperate ascent towards the richer waters of the upper ocean, a last-ditch effort to find an easy meal. And there, in the brighter, more dangerous world, you meet your old nemesis, the sperm whale. But this time, you are not its equal. You are old, slow, and weak. The ensuing struggle is short, one-sided, and deeply embarrassing. It is an undertaker, efficiently and dispassionately dismantling you. Or perhaps, and this is the most tragic end of all, nothing happens. You simply stop. Your massive body, unable to sustain its own bulk, gives out. Your systems fail. You succumb not to a fearsome predator, but to the simple, brutal math of energy economics. And so, you begin your final, long, slow, silent descent to the ocean floor. Your end is not the stuff of sagas. There is no glorious funeral pyre, no tearful eulogy. Your colossal corpse, the body of the mightiest predator in the abyss, drifts down through the water column like a spent zeppelin. It settles on the abyssal plain, a vast, muddy, featureless desert. And then, the scavengers arrive. First the hagfish, the disgusting slime eels of the deep, burrowing into your flesh. Then come the giant isopods, alien-like crustaceans the size of dinner plates, who methodically pick you apart. Crabs, worms, and a million other unseen creatures of the muck join the feast. The monster that terrorized the deep, the living legend, is reduced to a boneless, shapeless buffet. You are not a fallen king. You are an all-you-can-eat special, a sudden, welcome caloric windfall in the eternal famine of the seafloor. Your entire life of struggle and temporary dominance is erased, recycled back into the pitiless, indifferent system. And as your last recognizable scraps are consumed by blind, crawling things in the crushing dark, something else is happening, miles above your unceremonious grave. A new cloud of eggs, the result of your one clumsy, violent romantic encounter, is released into the void. A million new potential tragedies, each one a tiny, clueless, gelatinous speck, begins its own identical, pointless journey. Each one will face the same terror of birth, the same sibling rivalry, the same gauntlet of predators, the same clumsy failures, and if it is spectacularly, improbably lucky, the same brief, meaningless reign followed by the same inevitable, pathetic end. The cycle resets. Nothing is learned. Nothing changes. So, congratulations on your life. You existed as a godlike terror for a brief, shining moment, only to have your entire existence bookended by being a helpless snack, and then, eventually, a decomposing one. It turns out the only thing more terrifying than being eaten by a Kraken is being one. So, that's your life. A short, brutal, and ultimately meaningless cycle, repeated ad nauseam. You'd think that would be enough tragedy for one creature. But you were unlucky enough to exist at the same time as another, even more problematic primate. An ape that, unlike the sperm whale, doesn't just kill you to eat. It kills you because it gets bored, or curious, or because it simply can't stand the idea of something existing without it having a name and a price tag. And that's when your personal, biological tragedy became a historical catastrophe. The first time one of your kind encounters these apes, it is, like most things in your life, a complete accident and a total disaster for you. A storm, perhaps, or a fatal encounter with a whale, leaves your massive body bruised and dying, washed ashore on a stretch of sand you were never meant to see. And they find you, these small, bipedal creatures with their soft skin and their terrified, curious eyes. They approach your dying, bus-sized form, your single, unblinking dinner plate eye staring up at a sun it has never before seen. They see your massive tentacles, still feebly writhing. They see your parrot-like beak, a weapon of incredible power, now gasping uselessly in the open air. They cannot comprehend you. You are a violation of their reality. And so, they do what their species has always done with things it cannot understand. They invent a story. They don't see a deep-sea cephalopod in its death throes. They see a divine messenger from a sea god. They see a demon spat up from the underworld. They see a portent of a coming storm, a bad harvest, a lost war. Your entire identity, forged over millions of years in the crucible of the abyss, is instantly and irrevocably hijacked by a bunch of superstitious land dwellers who think that thunder is the sound of an angry deity rearranging the celestial furniture. You are now the Hofgufa of Norse legend, the Marjiger, the bishop fish, the sea monk. You have become the official, all-purpose bogeyman for all of their maritime anxieties, a monster custom-built to populate the blank spaces on their primitive maps. This newfound status as a divine omen or terrible monster lasts for exactly as long as it takes them to get over the initial shock and for their innate, grubby pragmatism to kick in. Awe is quickly replaced by a much more powerful and enduring human trait, hungry curiosity. That colossal eye, which stared into the abyssal dark for decades. It would make a fantastic drum skin, or perhaps a shield. That beak, which could sever the spine of a shark. It looks like it would be an excellent tool for chopping wood or butchering smaller, less divine animals. And your flesh, all of that muscle, all of that calamari. Is it edible? They begin to poke you. Not with reverence, but with sharpened sticks. They carve off pieces of you, not as a sacrifice, but as a sample. Your divinity evaporates under the harsh glare of their practicality. This is the great, ironic gap that defines your first interactions with humanity. In the evenings, around their smoky fires, they will tell stories about you. They will weave elaborate tales of your power, your wrath, your epic battles with gods and heroes. You will be immortalized in their oral traditions, painted crudely on the walls of their caves or carved into the prows of their longships. You are worshipped in their imagination, but in the cold light of day, your physical reality is being treated with all the reverence of a fallen log. Your corpse is a resource. Your sinew is used for rope, your ink for dye, your meat to feed the village for a week. You are simultaneously a god and a piece of grocery. You are a myth and a meal. They fear your imagined spirit while they greedily consume your very real body. As these apes become more ambitious, they start building flimsy little boats and venturing out onto the water. And it is here that you are handed a new, deeply unjust role. You become the universal scapegoat for their nautical incompetence. Did their pathetic excuse for a boat, held together with little more than tar and wishful thinking, get swamped by a moderately large wave? It wasn't poor craftsmanship. The Kraken, in its infinite malice, must have wrapped its tentacles around the hull and dragged it to the depths. Did they fail to account for a current and get hopelessly lost at sea? A great sea monster must have emerged and led them astray with its hypnotic gaze. Did the captain get drunk on fermented grain and steer the ship directly into a reef? Unlikely. It was surely you, the demon of the deep, rising up to claim another vessel for your underwater lair. You, who spend 99% of your miserable existence in the silent, crushing blackness miles below the surface, blissfully unaware of these noisy primates splashing about on the ceiling of your world, are now the prime suspect in every single maritime mishap. You are retroactively blamed for their every failure, a convenient, terrifying villain invented to explain away their own profound fragility on an ocean that was your home for eons before they ever figured out how to float. You are not just a creature anymore. You are a global alibi. You are the here-be monsters they scribble on their maps not as a warning, but as a confession of their own fear and ignorance. The injustice is staggering. You are declared a villain for crimes you couldn't commit, in a world you barely inhabit, by a species whose defining characteristic is an inability to ever accept that they might just be bad at something. So concludes the first chapter of your tragic relationship with humanity. The cynical takeaway from this ancient era is a lesson that will be repeated throughout your history. Being worshipped is simply the formal interview for the job of being sacrificed. Their awe is nothing more than the prelude to their avarice. Your first impression on the human psyche establishes a clear, depressing pattern. Your magnificence is not a source of wonder to them. It is a source of opportunity. Your terror is not a reason to leave you alone. It is a reason to conquer you. You are not, and will never be, a fellow creature sharing a planet. You are raw material, ready to be processed into whatever they need at the moment. A myth, a meal, a tool, or an excuse. As the apes move from their Iron Age fantasies into a more organized, and therefore more systematically miserable, period of empires, organized religion, and global commerce, their perception of you changes. The world is getting bigger, charted by their new, more resilient ships, and you are charted right along with it. You are no longer just a local legend whispered by illiterate fishermen. You are now an official, cataloged obstacle, a formal entry in the bestiaries of the learned. You are given new, more grandiose names, like Leviathan or Polypus, and you are drawn with hilarious inaccuracy on their expensive vellum maps. They depict you with wild, spiraling horns, a shaggy mane, and sometimes, for reasons that remain baffling, the torso of a wailing humanoid. Your role in their worldview shifts. You are no longer a confused, elemental god. You are now a bad omen, a certified agent of demonic forces, a physical manifestation of the untamed, godless wilderness that their burgeoning religions and empires are so desperate to civilize, conquer, and convert into taxable real estate. Men of God, like the Norwegian Bishop Erik Pontoppidan, who should have been far more concerned with the state of human souls, instead write about you with the breathless certainty of a paranoid eyewitness. He describes you not as a creature, but as a living, breathing island, a creature so vast that sailors might mistake you for land, drop anchor on your back, and be dragged to their doom when you decide to descend. You have graduated from being a local superstition to being an officially sanctioned monster, a direct challenge to their God-given dominion over the seas. With this new age of sail comes a new, voracious industry: whaling. These apes, in their insatiable quest for oil to light their miserable, smoky cities, begin to hunt the only creature in the ocean that you have ever considered a peer. They build floating factories designed for the sole purpose of slaughtering sperm whales. And in the process, they stumble upon you. Sometimes they see you on the surface, locked in a desperate battle with a whale they are hunting. Other times, and far more commonly, they find pieces of you inside the whales they kill and butcher. They pull your massive tentacles, your formidable beak, from the stomachs of their quarry. You are not the target of this industry, but you become its accidental byproduct. Your new job title is Whale by Catch. Your existence is reduced to a curious footnote in the blood-soaked logbooks of whaling ships. A captain from Nantucket might note, slew a great bull sperm whale today. In its belly, found the arm of a monstrous squid, the sucker teeth as large as a man's thumb. Your body parts, once the inspiration for divine myths, are now treated as macabre curiosities. That beak, which once symbolized the untamable power of the ocean, is now polished, mounted on a wooden plaque, and sold to a wealthy merchant in London or Amsterdam to be displayed in his cabinet of curiosities alongside a two-headed calf and a piece of the true crosses. You have been systematically demoted. You have fallen from a god, to a monster, to a product, and now, finally, to a piece of unsettling furniture. You have been commodified, not for what you are, but for the strange story your dismembered parts can tell over dinner. Their so-called progress is your personal nightmare. The technological advancements of this era serve only to make the ocean, your home, a more dangerous and unpleasant place to live. The iron hulls of their ships create a constant, grinding noise that pollutes the abyssal silence you rely on to hunt. Their cannons used to kill whales and each other, send shockwaves through your world. The deep scattering layer, that vast, vertically migrating ecosystem of smaller creatures that forms a huge part of your food supply, is disrupted and thrown into chaos by the ceaseless passage of their vessels above. They are not just a passing nuisance. They are systematically and carelessly dismantling your world from the ceiling down, all in the name of profit and empire. The supreme irony is that while they are doing this, they are simultaneously telling ever more elaborate and fantastic stories about you. This is the era of the great sea yarns, of the pulp adventure novel. Authors like Jules Verne will take the fragmented reports from whalers and spin them into an epic confrontation in 20,000 Leagues Under the Seas. You are cast as the villain, a malevolent, thinking monster that actively seeks to destroy human vessels. You are depicted grappling with the submarine Nautilus, a creature of pure, destructive rage. The reality, of course, is that you have never, not once, intentionally attacked one of their ships. You have no concept of them, yet in their fiction, you are their greatest nemesis. They invent these glorious, terrifying tales of fighting you, a complete fabrication, while their real-world actions, the overfishing, the whaling, the noise pollution, are inflicting a slow, silent, and far more effective death upon your entire species. The fight is a one-sided slaughter, but not in the way their stories tell it. You are not being killed by heroes with harpoons. You are being killed by accountants with ledger books. The deeply ironic summary of this age is that your strength, your size, your very magnificence, was used to build the very empires that would eventually destroy your habitat. The fear you inspired was part of the maritime folklore that drove men to sea, to explore, to conquer. And that conquest led directly to the industries that would poison your home. Your beauty, as glimpsed in fragments pulled from the bellies of whales, was the very reason you were hunted down, not for yourself, but as a curiosity. They became obsessed with the myth of the Kraken while remaining blissfully, destructively ignorant of the reality of Architeuthis ducks. The greatest threat to your existence was never a harpoon aimed at your heart. It was a global economic system that saw the entire ocean as nothing more than a resource to be plundered. And then comes the modern world, the age of science, industry, and a particularly cloying form of hypocrisy. After centuries of being a myth, a monster, and a curiosity, they finally, officially, discover you. In 1857, the Danish naturalist Japetus Steenstrup examines a beak from a stranded specimen, and, based on this single body part, formally describes you to science. He gives you your official name, Architeuthis ducks, the ruling squid. After millennia of inspiring terror and awe, you have been successfully captured, catalogued, and demoted. You are no longer a world-ending calamity from the Book of Revelation. You are a biological specimen, a data point, a chapter in an invertebrate zoology textbook. Your final resting place is not some glorious underwater Valhalla, but a dusty jar of formaldehyde in the basement of a museum in Copenhagen. Your once powerful body bleached and shrunken, your terrifying eye clouded over with the milky film of preservation. This redefinition is, in many ways, the cruelest demotion of all. As your reality becomes known, your myth is defanged and commercialized. You are co-opted as a brand. Your terrifying, majestic image, once the stuff of nightmares, is simplified, stylized, and slapped onto the label of a bottle of spiced rum. You become the snarling, aggressive mascot for a professional hockey team. You are transformed into a rubbery, unconvincing CGI monster for a series of increasingly terrible summer blockbuster movies, where you battle helicopters and retired wrestlers. Your name, Kraken, once whispered in fear, is now shouted by drunk sports fans and printed on novelty t-shirts. Your power, your mystery, your very soul has been gutted, processed, and repackaged to sell merchandise to the perpetually bored descendants of the very apes who once trembled at the thought of you. You are no longer a problem to be solved or a monster to be feared. You are a logo. Having thoroughly conquered the planet and begun the long, slow, and tedious process of ruining it for everyone, humanity now looks upon you with a new, and particularly nauseating, emotion, sentimental guilt. Having hunted your food, polluted your water, and deafened you with their engines, they now decide that you are beautiful and tragic. You are no longer a monster, a resource, or even a logo. You are now a symbol. A living, breathing poster child for the fragile beauty of our mysterious oceans. Your haunting image, captured by the occasional lucky deep-sea submersible, is now used on glossy fundraising pamphlets for conservation groups. Help us save the Kraken, the pamphlets plead, conveniently omitting the fact that it is us you need saving from. Your new, final job is not to hunt, or to fight, or to reproduce. Your final job is to inspire guilt. You are now useful to them, not for your meat, your beak, or your ink, but for your ability to make them feel thoughtful and concerned, and ever so slightly sad for a few minutes before they get back into their gas-guzzling SUVs to drive home to their air-conditioned houses and watch a nature documentary about the pristine wilderness they are actively destroying. The rare footage of you alive in your natural habitat, a silent, ghostly titan gliding through the crushing black, is hailed as a global triumph. It's a glimpse into a magical, secret world. A world they are systematically unmaking with their deep-sea trawlers and their plastic waste. You have been repurposed one last time. You are to be their living, breathing martyr, a beautiful, tragic spectacle whose existence allows them to briefly mourn the consequences of their own actions without actually having to change them. So what does this new age of conservation actually feel like from your perspective? Does it feel like a safe haven? A reprieve from the relentless pressures of your existence? Of course not. It feels like more of the same, just with better marketing. Their kindness looks like a deep-sea trawler, a vessel the size of a city block, dragging a weighted net miles wide across the seafloor. It scrapes the ocean bottom bare, indiscriminately destroying ancient coral gardens, obliterating entire ecosystems, and scooping up everything in its path. This is how they catch a few commercially valuable fish, by bulldozing your entire world. Their kindness tastes like the microplastics that now infuse every level of the food chain, from the smallest copepod to the largest whale, filling the bodies of your prey with indigestible, toxic garbage. Their kindness sounds like the constant, low-frequency hum of 1,000 container ships crossing the globe, a deafening, omnipresent noise that interferes with your ability to hunt, to navigate, to hear the approach of a predator. It sounds like the explosive blasts of seismic air guns, used in the unending search for offshore oil, sending shockwaves through the water that can cause physical injury and mass strandings. And on the vanishingly rare occasion that one of your kind is captured and saved, what does that look like? It looks like a tank. A comfortable, climate-controlled prison where you are fed dead fish and gawked at by crowds of tourists taking flash photography. This isn't a sanctuary. It is a life sentence in a display case. You are stripped of your purpose, your instincts, your very nature, and turned into a living museum exhibit, a biological trophy for your destroyer's descendants to marvel at. This is the prison of their kindness. The final, most profound, most exquisitely painful irony of your modern existence is this. For centuries, they told stories about you being a monster that destroys them. They painted you as the ultimate threat, the apocalypse in cephalopod form. But in the end, it was they who were the monster. They were the world-ending calamity. And the worst part is, they didn't even do it on purpose. They destroyed you by accident, as a casual, thoughtless byproduct of their endless, mindless, insatiable need for more. More oil, more fish, more shipping lanes, more plastic toys, more everything. You weren't a hated enemy they set out to conquer. You were just in the way. What is the final, cynical truth of your long, torturous relationship with humanity? After demoting you from a god to a monster, from a monster to a specimen, from a specimen to a logo, Their final act of domination is to preserve you. They now spend millions of their dollars to fund expeditions to find you, to study you, and to protect you. They create marine preserves in waters you no longer inhabit. They hold international conferences to discuss the plight of the giant squid. This is not for your sake. It is for theirs. It is the ultimate act of self-serving, sentimental hypocrisy. It's like an arsonist endowing a firefighter's benevolent fund. They hold a lavish, well-publicized funeral for a victim they are still, at this very moment, actively murdering. It allows them to feel better about themselves, to congratulate themselves on their empathy and their environmental consciousness, while the fundamental, destructive behaviors remain unchanged. Your entire epic story, a saga that began in the lightless pressure of the abyssal deep and soared to the heights of human mythology, ends right here, as a beautiful, tragic, and ultimately convenient symbol of their own manufactured remorse. You are the ghost at their feast, a feast that is, and always has been, held at your expense. Your existence is now defined by their cameras. A remote-operated vehicle, a clumsy, whirring metal box bristling with lights and lenses, descends into your kingdom. To you, it is just another bizarre, bioluminescent creature in a world full of them, perhaps a bit louder and more obnoxious than most. You approach it with the same cautious curiosity you would any other strange phenomenon. You might tentatively reach out a tentacle, your suckers gently exploring the smooth metal surface. You are not attacking it. You are simply trying to understand what it is. And up on a ship, miles above, a room full of scientists erupts in cheers. They have done it. They have captured footage of the elusive Kraken. News headlines will circle the globe. Living Kraken filmed in the deep. They will praise the pilot's courage, the sophistication of their technology. They will not talk about what it means for you. For you, it means nothing and everything. The light from their submersible is blinding, a searing intrusion into a world that has never known a sun. The noise from its thrusters is a deafening roar in the crushing silence. This brief, fleeting encounter, a moment of idle curiosity on your part, will be dissected, analyzed, and broadcast to billions. Your image will be used to sell television shows, to boost careers, to reinforce the narrative that they are the masters of this world, the great explorers who have conquered its final frontier. You are no longer the ruling squid. You are the ruled. Your final purpose is to be discovered, over and over again, by the very beings who are making your discovery an increasingly unlikely event. The more they see of you, the less of you there is to see. Let's consider the legacy they have built for you. In ancient times, you were a god, a source of awe. Then you became a monster, a source of fear. Then a product, a source of profit. Then a specimen, a source of knowledge. And now, you are a spectacle, a source of guilt-tinged entertainment. At no point in this entire historical trajectory were you ever simply allowed to be. At no point were you treated as a fellow inhabitant of the planet, a creature with its own life, its own purpose, utterly independent of their needs and desires. Your story, as told by them, has always been about them. Your divinity was a reflection of their superstition. Your monstrosity was a reflection of their fear. Your value as a product was a reflection of their greed. And your current status as a tragic icon is a reflection of their hypocrisy. The ultimate insult is that they now believe they love you. They write children's books where you are a friendly, misunderstood giant. They create plush toys of you with big, sad, cartoon eyes. They have taken the terrifying reality of your existence, the brutal struggle for survival, the cold, predatory nature, and sanitized it, turning you into a cuddly caricature. They have stripped you of your power, your danger, your very essence, and replaced it with a soft, marketable version that they can comfortably embrace. They don't love you. They love the idea of you that they have created, an idea that makes them feel good about themselves. They love the monster they have tamed, not with harpoons, but with marketing. It is the final victory of their civilization over your wilderness. To not just kill you, but to absorb you, to digest your mythos and excrete it as harmless, family-friendly content. So where does that leave you? Drifting in the dark, as always. You are a relic, a ghost from a pre-human world, stubbornly persisting in the face of a rising tide of noise and waste and indifference. You are a legend that has outlived its own reality. They barely think of you at all, too busy checking their GPS and their shipping manifests. The scientists who study you do so with a sense of urgency, knowing that you are a vanishing masterpiece, a book whose final pages are being erased even as they desperately try to read them. You are trapped between two worlds, the real world of the deep sea, which is becoming increasingly uninhabitable, and the imaginary world of human culture, where you are doomed to live on as a trademarked phantom. Your biological tragedy was that you were born into a life of pointless struggle. Your historical tragedy is that this struggle happened to intersect with a species whose specialty is to make everything about themselves. You survived the crushing pressure, the eternal cold, the constant threat of being eaten. You survived battles with sperm whales and the unforgiving economics of the abyss. The one thing you couldn't survive was them. You couldn't survive their stories, their greed, their science, their sentimentality, and most of all, their complete, unwavering, planet-altering indifference. Your final confrontation is not with a whale or a rival. It is with a legacy you never asked for and an extinction you did nothing to deserve. You are the Kraken, and your true, final horror is not that you will drag ships to the bottom of the sea, but that you will simply fade away, leaving behind nothing but a cool story and a great logo for a bottle of rum. The great monster of the deep, defeated not by a hero's sword, but by a rising tide of plastic bags and apathy. A truly modern tragedy. Think of the sheer, cosmic absurdity. You, a creature perfectly adapted to the most extreme environment on Earth, a masterpiece of evolution, are being undone by a species that can't survive for 10 minutes without its creature comforts. A species that has to invent elaborate technologies just to visit your home for a few hours, yet feels entitled to rewrite its rules and determine its fate. They look at you and see a monster, but their own monstrousness is so vast, so pervasive, so deeply embedded in the very fabric of their existence, that they are completely blind to it. They are the invasive species, and the entire planet is their collateral damage. This is the final punchline. Your tragic legacy isn't just one part, or two parts. It's an ongoing, ever-evolving farce. The ultimate, most profound irony of your modern existence is that they now hold the power of your creation and your destruction. They can clone extinct animals. They can edit genes. One day, if you vanish completely, it is entirely plausible that they will, after a few decades of feeling bad about it, decide to bring you back. They will reconstruct your genome, grow you in an artificial womb, and raise you in a colossal, high-tech aquarium. And they will congratulate themselves on their genius, on their power to correct their own mistakes. They will resurrect you from the extinction they caused, not to set you free, but to own you completely. Your final humiliation will be to owe your very existence to your own murderers. You will be their ultimate creation, a monster entirely of their own making, a living testament not to the power of nature, but to the terrifying, limitless, and deeply cynical arrogance of humankind. And so, your story ends, not with a bang, not even with a whimper, but with the quiet hum of a filtration system in a state-of-the-art aquatic theme park. You will float in your comfortable, sterile prison, a ghost resurrected by science, and you will stare out through the thick acrylic at the crowds of your keepers. And perhaps, in some vestigial, ancestral corner of your brain, you will feel a faint, throbbing echo of the crushing, silent, magnificent darkness you once called home. You will be the last Kraken, and your only kingdom will be the space between their commercials. Let's return to you, the individual, the fading titan. Old age has settled into your very bones, if you had any. The magnificent machine of your body is breaking down. The chromatophores in your skin, the cells that allowed you to flash with color and pattern, to communicate and to camouflage, begin to fail. Your skin, once a shimmering, iridescent canvas, becomes dull and blotchy. It's like a magnificent television screen losing its pixels one by one, until the picture is just a snowy, incoherent mass. Your movements, once a blur of deadly efficiency, are now slow, ponderous, and deliberate. Each lunge for prey requires a calculus of energy you can no longer afford to miscalculate. The effort is immense, the reward dwindling. This inevitable decline is a lonely process. In the vastness of the abyss, there is no herd to protect you, no family to care for you. Weakness is a death sentence, and the scent of it travels far in the water. The smaller predators, creatures you would have once inhaled without a second thought, now grow bold. They nip at your tentacles, they dart in to steal your hard-won meals. You are a decaying landmark, a slow-moving obstacle that occasionally provides a free lunch. The fear you once commanded has curdled into something like pity, if the deep sea had any capacity for such a useless emotion. It doesn't. So what replaces fear is simple, predatory opportunity. You are becoming a resource again, not for humans, but for the ecosystem you once ruled. The final confrontation, when it comes, is an exercise in bathos. There is no epic struggle. No clash of titans worthy of the storybooks. It might be a school of hungry Humboldt squid, the piranhas of the cephalopod world. Individually, they are nothing. But together, they are a swarm of relentless, mindless appetite. They sense your weakness, your slowness. They swarm you, their smaller, sharper beaks tearing at your flesh. You try to fight back, to ink, to flee, but your movements are too slow, your ink cloud too thin. It is death by 1,000 cuts, a slow, humiliating dismantling by creatures that should be your prey. You are being unmade by your inferiors, a powerful metaphor for. Well, you don't have time for metaphors. You're being eaten alive. Or, perhaps, your end is quieter. In your desperation for an easy meal, you drift too high into the warmer, shallower waters you're not built for. The change in pressure and temperature is a shock to your ancient, specialized system. Your internal chemistry goes haywire. You become disoriented, confused. You drift listlessly, a giant adrift in an alien world, until you are found by a pod of pilot whales or a large shark. To them, you are not the mythical Kraken. You are a strange, slow-moving blob of meat, a baffling but welcome gift from the depths. The fight is over before it begins. There is no honor in it. It's just a predator taking advantage of a creature that is already dying. A final, biological transaction. And so we circle back to your demise. Your vast, ruined body sinks. The long, slow funeral procession to the seafloor begins anew. The scavengers, ever patient, ever waiting, prepare for the feast. The cycle of your biological tragedy is complete. It was a life of immense struggle, fleeting dominance, and an inevitable, undignified end. A masterpiece of evolutionary design, rendered pointless by the simple, brutal laws of nature. A story of sound and fury, signifying absolutely nothing. But this, as we've established, is only half of the tragedy. The public horror, the one you share with humanity, is a far more elaborate and insulting affair. Let us linger for a moment on that intersection. The whale hunters. For centuries, they were the only humans to have any regular, tangible proof of your existence. They were the ones who found your tentacles in whale stomachs, the ones who witnessed the titanic battles on the ocean surface. Did this first-hand evidence lead to a deeper, more nuanced understanding of you as a creature? Did it inspire scientific inquiry, a desire to learn more about the incredible life form they were encountering? Of course not. It just made their stories better. When a whaler came back to port in New Bedford or Nantucket, the beak of a giant squid was his proof. Proof that his tales were true. Proof that he was a brave hero who had ventured into a world of monsters and returned. You were his credibility. Your dismembered body parts were the props in his drunken storytelling. The physical evidence used to bolster a narrative of human courage and dominion over nature. He wasn't interested in your biology. He was interested in your mythology, because that mythology made him seem more important. You were a supporting character in the story of his own life, and your role was to be the fearsome antagonist that he, the hero, had vanquished, either directly or by killing the other creature that had fought you. The truth was irrelevant. The story was everything. This pattern, this use of you as a prop for their own narratives, accelerates into the modern age. When you're first complete, Intact body is washed ashore in the 19th century, it causes a sensation. Scientists flock to see you. They measure you, they draw you, they dissect you. They are overjoyed. They have finally captured their monster. And what is the first thing they do? They put you on display. Your corpse is propped up, photographed, and toured around like a circus freak. You become a traveling roadshow, a morbid spectacle for the masses. Come see the great Kraken, the hideous monster of the deep. People pay a shilling to stand in a stuffy tent and gawk at your decaying body, to feel a thrill of fear and superiority. You are not a creature to be understood. You are a horror to be consumed. The scientific impulse, which should have been one of reverence and curiosity, was immediately married to the commercial impulse of a showman. The desire to know was inextricably linked to the desire to profit from the public's ignorance and fear. And this corrupt bargain continues to this day. It is a media event. It is an opportunity to generate headlines, to sell advertising, to create a new television special. Your tragedy has been monetized. Your rarity, a direct consequence of their impact on the planet, is precisely what makes you so valuable to them as a piece of content. The fewer of you there are, the more each sighting is worth. They are, in a very real sense, profiting from your extinction. It's a perfect, closed loop of cynical exploitation. Consider the language they use. When one of their submersibles finally captures you on film, they call it a mission, as if they were brave astronauts landing on a new planet, and not just tourists with a very expensive camera invading your home. They speak of the hunt for the Kraken, framing their scientific endeavors in the language of conflict and conquest. It betrays their true mindset. They are not seeking to understand you as an equal. They are seeking to capture your image, to possess you, to bag you for their collection of digital trophies. The colonial mindset of their ancestors, who sought to conquer new lands and enslave new peoples, is alive and well. It has just been sublimated into the seemingly benign field of nature documentary filmmaking. The goal is the same: to find something wild, beautiful, and free, and to subjugate it, to bring it back as a story that reinforces their own importance. And the ultimate hypocrisy lies in their conservation efforts. They create marine protected areas, or MPAs. These are zones of the ocean where certain destructive activities, like trawling or drilling, are prohibited. On paper, it sounds wonderful, but look closer. Where do they establish these MPAs? Often in areas that are already commercially unimportant, or far from the major shipping lanes. They protect the places they don't care about anyway, while the vast majority of the ocean remains an industrial free-for-all. It is a grand, theatrical gesture of environmentalism that costs them nothing and changes very little about the fundamental, planet-wide assault on your habitat. It is like a homeowner who, while his house is burning down, meticulously waters a single potted plant in the corner of the garden and congratulates himself on his commitment to horticulture. The gesture is not designed to solve the problem. It is designed to make the perpetrator feel better about being the problem. They draw a little box on a map of the world's oceans and say, "This part is safe." It is a lie. The noise pollution doesn't respect the boundaries. The plastic waste doesn't check for a permit before it enters. The chemical runoff from their continents doesn't stop at the imaginary line. The entire ocean is a single, interconnected system, and they are poisoning the whole thing. Protecting one small corner of it is a profoundly, cynically useless act. But it generates good press. It allows them to say they are taking action. It is, once again, all about them. Your silent legacy, then, is to be the unwilling poster child for this age of sentimental hypocrisy. You are the perfect symbol for them. You are huge, terrifying, and almost impossible to find. This makes you mysterious and alluring. You are also dying out, a victim of their progress. You are the perfect combination of a monster and a martyr. You allow them to feel the thrill of fear and the warm glow of pity at the same time. You are a Rorschach test for their confused, contradictory feelings about the natural world they have both conquered and ruined. And as you drift through the dying ocean, a lonely king in a crumbling castle, you are blissfully unaware of any of it. And that, perhaps, is the only mercy you have ever been shown. Let's zoom in on the final act of this farcical tragedy, the prison of their kindness. Imagine, against all odds, you are captured. Not as a corpse, but alive. A juvenile, perhaps, swept up in a deep-sea net and brought to the surface, shocked and dying, but salvageable. They rush you to one of their massive aquariums, a place that bills itself as a center for ocean conservation and education. You are placed in a colossal, refrigerated tank, a carefully controlled environment designed to mimic the pressure and darkness of your home. They have, at immense expense, created a gilded cage for you. Here, you will be fed. You will be safe from predators. You will be protected from the harsh realities of the abyss. You will also be stripped of everything that makes you you. Your life, which was a constant, desperate struggle for survival, is now a life of passive, listless waiting. You will never hunt again. You will never feel the thrill of the chase, the satisfaction of a hard-won meal. Instead, dead fish will be dropped into your tank on a predictable schedule. Your mighty tentacles, designed to snatch prey in the dark, will have nothing to snatch. Your great beak, designed to tear and kill, will have nothing to crush. Your vast, complex brain, honed by millions of years of evolution to navigate a three-dimensional world of ambush and escape, will have nothing to do but stare at the featureless blue walls of your enclosure. And you will be watched, constantly. A constant parade of faces will press against the glass, their cameras flashing, their children tapping on the acrylic. They will marvel at your size, your strange beauty. They will read the little plaque next to your tank, which tells them your name, your diet, and how endangered you are. They will feel a pang of sadness, and then they will move on to the sea otter exhibit. You are an exhibit, a living diorama. Your existence has been reduced to being an educational tool for the very species that necessitated your rescue. You are a living, breathing symbol of their destructive power and their subsequent, self-congratulatory remorse. It is a fate far crueler than a quick death in the jaws of a sperm whale. It is a slow death of the spirit, a hollowing out of your very essence, all under the guise of compassion. This is your ultimate, tragic legacy, to be kept alive, but not to live. To be preserved as a specimen, a living monument to what they have lost. They will study your behavior in the tank, write scientific papers on your response to stimuli. They will congratulate themselves on the data they are gathering, data that might one day help save your species. But the creature they are studying is not a Kraken. It is a shadow, a ghost in a machine of their own making. The real you, the wild, magnificent, terrifying you, is already gone. The final irony is that in their quest to understand you, they have created a version of you that is no longer real. And they are so enamored with their creation, they don't even notice the difference.